You're listening to a Brain Stew Fresh Fright review.
What's up, creeps? And welcome to another epic film, guys. Flight review. I'm Justin.
I'm Jeremy.
I'm BluBrry.
This week on the show, that's the worst vampire impression. It may actually be almost as good as one of the vampire impressions in this fucking movie. We're talking about Radio Silence's Abigail, which just landed in theaters last week, and a brand new vampire horror comedy, again by the team Radio Silence, known for Ready or Not in the last two installments of the Scream franchise. I'm pumped to talk about this one. I don't know about you guys. This one came out last week. $28 million budget. Only made so far as of this recording half of that budget, about $15 million. But I think a lot of great word of mouth, which it is getting right now, will probably get it closer to that. It'll probably push through. Horror lately has been just winning, absolutely fucking slaughtering the box office. So I have faith this one will do well. But ladies and gentlemen, as always, we would like to warn you, if you have not seen Abigail, this will be a full spoiler review. So if you haven't seen it and you don't want it ruined, put those fangs back in your mouth, go see the fucking movie, and then come back when you're finished.
Get the fuck out of here.
Listen, or if you're one of those, disturbed motherfuckers that's like, I just don't want to see the movie, I just want to listen to y'all talk about it, then stick around. And what do we got? David Draymond on the show now? Brady, did you pierce your
what they say,
spikes?
The animal soul is mine.
Okay. All right.
I want you to bleed right before your eyes.
Very interesting.
I have no control this time.
That I actually listened to, side note, an interview with David Draymond recently, where they asked him about a rumor where, like, he was at a zoo and heard monkeys make that noise, and that's where he got that idea for making that sound and song.
It's one of those things, like, if you go in the studio and, like, he was like, I'm not going to tell anyone I'm going to do this. I'm just going to fucking unleash. And they're, like, doing the whole intro. And he's like, wow. And everybody's like, what?
Dude,
that's great, right?
That's the story. That's the story. He said when he did it, the whole rest of the band looked at him like, what are you doing? And then he felt like this primal feeling to the beat. And he's like, it's gonna be big. Just wait and see. And then, obviously, we're sitting here talking about a Disturbed song before we're like reviewing a movie.
I think the same thing when Jonathan Davis does his scatting. Like, did he just let them know he was going to do that, or he just, like, freestyled it? And was
that's kind of different. That's kind of different.
Yeah.
I mean, that's same idea a little bit. Same idea. It's like alien baby talk, if you will, but...
Alien baby talk.
Well, Jeremy, you always sound like a baby alien when you do that one voice. It's kind of cute. You know what I mean? I don't know. But, yes. So, ladies and gentlemen, Abigail, here it is. And to those uninitiated, if you live under a fucking rock or maybe in a cave with bats or vampires and you don't know what this movie's all about, be ready. Why don't you fill them in?
Alrighty. So, it is also a very loose reimagining of Universal's Dracula's Daughter from 1936, but Abigail follows as a group of criminals find themselves trapped inside of a mansion by their not-so-helpless victim and her insatiable, gruesome hunger.
And warning alert before we even go any further, as you can hear,
Spoiler filled.
We are not sacrificing kittens on the show live. I promise. We love animals, animal lovers all around. Brady is recording in a room with a fresh litter of kittens. Isn't that right, my friend?
There are 6 kittens in here right now. One, I think.
God, it sounds like hell.
One just shit in the corner over there, so that's gonna be fun.
Ooh.
But yeah, there's 6 kittens in here. So if you hear some chirping or some trilling or me yelling in pain, it's probably because one just like bit me in the fucking dick. But yeah.
and I'm entirely too lazy to try to edit any of that shit out. So if you're listening,
And who fucking hates kittens other
well,
than
everyone,
Jeremy?
come on, I don't
Fucking
think
hate 'em.
Jeremy. Come on, you can't hate a kitten, man.
Hate 'em.
You can't hate a kitten.
Don't like cats, man. Don't like them.
I love all animals.
Well, also
so
cats would
fuck
kill
you.
you. Like you're deathly allergic.
Oh yeah, I'm
That's
like
fair.
mega. It's like the one thing I'm more allergic to than anything on this planet. There's
That
6 of them in the room that
bullshit.
Brady's in right now.
You know what I'm saying?
Bullshit artist.
Well, you're a bullshit artist, Dad.
Bullshit artist.
Anyway,
let's resume to the movie itself.
Justin is not a hootie tootie disco cutie, that's for sure.
He's not. So, like, real quick before we do that, so do you guys would you have preferred the title Dracula's Daughter, or do you think that Abigail is more fitting? And do you think, second question, that the movie would be more successful if it was called Dracula's Daughter?
I like that they went with Abigail because Abigail is, I think, Hebrew for my father's joy. That's what it means. So I like that correlation. And no, I think if they had come out and said directly, like, we're going to call this is a reimagining of Dracula's Daughter, that would have turned a lot of people off. And I think they would have kind of backed themselves into a corner with it. So by
Gotcha.
saying, like having rumors, because we talked about it on our most anticipated of the year, I think, where there was going to be a loose reimagining of a Universal monster movie this time of year, but nobody really knew details. So I think they kind of went the right direction there.
Yes, and I love the name Abigail. Anyways, I love it fits the character in the movie. Those that have seen the movie, again, we're going to be, breaking it to you way too early. If you have the name Dracula in the title, everyone's going to be waiting for Dracula to come around the corner, and most people going to see this are very unaware that it's an extremely loose reimagining of Dracula's Daughter. From what I've read, very quickly on the subject, it's so loose that it's almost not the same thing at all whatsoever. It's just the basic concept, at most. So no, unlike Last Voyage of the Demeter, which I definitely felt like that movie should have been fucking named Dracula on a Boat, because it was, rather than
Dracula.
trying to have,
Should have just never been made, in my opinion. But
I disagree. I think there's a lot of great things that happen in the movie. I don't think any movie should not be made. I think that's kind of stupid. It did well enough.
There's a lot of movies that should not have been made.
A lot of
you,
people enjoyed it. We weren't those people, but I get what you're saying, but no.
well, obviously you don't, because you disagreed, but that's fine.
No, you can understand what somebody's saying
you
and disagree at the same
agree.
time.
You don't understand because you said no movie should ever not be made, so we'll hold you to that.
No, I will, for sure. Definitely 100%, because it made some money. Some people liked it. So that's my viewpoint on it. But moving along with this movie, Abigail, right back to what you were saying, Brady, about our most anticipated list. I was excited for this. I liked the mystery surrounding it. I liked what I saw in the trailer initially on this. It just looked like a fun popcorn horror movie, which we don't get that many of these days. Blood drenched, just fucking super balls to the wall fun, silly, quippy, comedy bits and shit like that. We don't get a lot of horror comedies as much as we used to. And Radio Silence has proven with their last 2 Scream movies, at least in my eyes, that they can balance those things pretty well. So for me, leading into this, I was excited. I mean, I wasn't over the moon or anything, but I was definitely prepared to enjoy this one. How about you, Brady, being the big vampire fan that you are?
Yeah, I'll admit, first time seeing the trailer, I really wasn't impressed. I thought it looked kind of tacky. I thought the trailer did a huge disservice to this film in hindsight. Because what it chose to show were some like cheesy lines where Abigail goes, "I like playing with my food," and in the context of the trailer, it comes across as super fucking cheese.
I fucking love that line.
or there are some overdone versions of
my food.
Jeremy's favorite word, meta, like where you see a character talking
What the
about,
fuck
like,
is that my favorite word?
because you hate it.
Oh yeah, okay. I was about to say, okay,
yeah.
so you were being facetious.
Oh my god, yeah. But when a character goes, "Well, what kind of vampire are we talking about?" And then in the wake of the previous 2 Scream films, I'm on the show saying I really don't like Melissa Barrera and what she did in the franchise. So I wasn't super into her being a lead in this. However, all that being said, I was pleasantly surprised and my mind was changed by watching the movie. I thought it was clever. I thought the dialogue was mostly enjoyable and worked. I thought the action sequences were on point. There was tons of blood and guts. There was actual terror, and I liked the characters enough too. Was it a perfect film? No. Was it something I feel that changed the genre? No. Does it need to? No. Do I have problems? Sure.
Yeah.
But it was enjoyable and fun. And the main theme was from Tchaikovsky's ballet Swan Lake, which was used in the opening titles of the original Dracula from 1931. And I think I turned and looked at Justin. I said, "Is this Dracula theme? Is this the theme from Dracula?"
Yeah, and it immediately nailed it for me. I was like, if they're gonna go with this, which I love that theme so much, I felt we were in for a fun ride. Jeremy, I know from previous discussions kind of how you felt about this one going in, but let our listeners know.
Yeah. Man, Kevin Durand in the trailer going, "Vampire on my ass!" Bro, that had me. That had me. I love Kevin Durand. I think that he is a fantastic actor. This is not his first foray into vampire content, as he was on Guillermo del Toro's The Strain television show on FX, which
Wow.
is
Great show.
fucking incredible, man. I'm just a huge fan of his, so I'm like, okay, they got me with casting him and having him and that little bit in the trailer is just absolutely fantastic. I'm a huge fan of vampire films and all things vampires. Um we don't get as many like straight up horror vampire theatrical things as I would like, at least. So anytime there's one that's coming out, as long as it's not, sparkly vampires and things of that nature,
Boo you.
I'm yeah, I'm generally on board. So that being said, I wasn't like over the moon excited for this one. I really do love Ready or Not. And I really enjoyed the most recent Scream film. And I'm gonna echo a little bit of some of Brady's sentiments in the fact that Melissa Barrera, I didn't particularly care for her or her acting in Scream 5 or Scream 6. She was fine in Scream 6. I felt like she was very stale and dry in Scream 5, compared to some of her counterparts on screen. I gotta tell you though, she fucking won me over with this movie. Like, she was absolutely fantastic. I completely bought all of her performance, and honestly, like, she's absolutely one of the best things about this movie. So definitely a fan now. So go Melissa Barrera. That was fucking awesome. I enjoyed this movie. I went by myself, which is, man, it's like it's kind of nice going to a fucking movie by yourself sometimes,
Right?
man.
Right?
I wasn't able to go with you guys when you went to the early screening. Um, so this was a situation of I was like, all right, well, we got to review it for the podcast, so I need to go see it. So like I went on Sunday and went to an early screening of it, and I roughed it. I went to AMC theaters, so I felt like I was watching it in an alley behind a 7-Eleven, because
But
that's
no
like
one
the
you didn't
equivalent experience.
no one ruined it for you though, right? You didn't have to deal with any phones flashing in your face or people talking or any teenagers, any of that.
There was some. No, I mean it wasn't horrible. Like before the movie, there were some mouth breathing rednecks that sat a couple rows back from me that I was like, "Ah, here we fucking go." But they were all right. They behaved well enough during the movie. But man, I had a great time with this movie. I do have some issues with it, but ultimately I was entertained. I laughed quite a few times, and there's a lot of things that I super enjoyed about this movie. So, Justin, what about you?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like right off the bat, I had an absolute blast with this. I just had a lot of fun with it. And, to echo what Brady said first, it doesn't break the mold. It doesn't do anything that fresh for the horror genre or the vampire genre, but it feels fresh because we haven't seen anything like this in a long time. To me, it was like House on Haunted Hill adjacent in a way where it's like you're all stuck in a house. You're all stuck in here because you're meant to be stuck in this house. You can't get out, and you're bait for some unknown entity to attack, or for you to be feasted on. And I like the buildup. I will agree. I already know Brady's going to bring this up, so I might as well bring it to the forefront right now. A lot of people are mentioning that there are pacing issues with the movie. They didn't necessarily bother me that much, but it does take quite a while in the first act to get to the blood, the gore, the neck biting and all that stuff. But in those moments, I think it kind of allows you rather to connect with the characters. We get a backstory for each character, and what I thought was a really entertaining and witty scene.
Love that scene.
This is a traditional heist movie in the sense that you're trying to figure out who these characters are, why are they there, what is the underlining theme behind their motivation. And again, this cast together in the room had great fucking chemistry. I loved this cast. A lot of people are singing the praises of a lot of the cast. Kevin Durant, 100%. He was hilarious in this movie. For me, it was absolutely Melissa Barrera. She shined like a fucking shining star. My boy Dan Stevens, which just crushed it in Godzilla X Kong, The New Empire. And within weeks, he's in another big blockbuster coming out. Those two movies are at the box office right now going against each other. So props to him. He's great in both of them. Alicia Ware as Abigail, my favorite performance in the movie. And of course, we have Catherine Newton as Sammy, who we've talked about on the show plenty of times earlier this year with Lisa Frankenstein. She is just crushing it in the horror genre. I love seeing, Jeremy, these up and coming younger actors in Hollywood just choosing horror, that you could tell they love it. They want to do it. She did Freaky. She's done so much in the genre, and she's just absolutely crushing. I just loved the chemistry with all these characters. You have Giancarlo Esposito here who shows up a little bit. It's just a really, really good fucking time. And I just thought it was super fun. Doesn't need to reinvent the wheel. Super uber violent and gory. And I know that a lot of people were talking about it early in the early reactions, like, you have no idea how much blood they're going to be using in this. And about halfway through, I'm like, I'm not nearly impressed by what they were saying. By the end, I was like, okay, it's quite a bit of a huge amount of blood for a mainstream, big produced blockbuster horror movie. So
Can we just say that Radio Silence really loves the idea of people just exploding into goo? Because they did the same, literally the same gag effect in Ready or Not. They did it in this one. So I'm like, oh, they're like huge fans of people just exploding into goo.
Yeah.
So,
and going back to it, Justin, you were talking, the ensemble cast is pretty fucking stacked. And I also loved the character of Peter, played by Kevin Durant. But for me, who stole the show was Angus Cloud as Dean. Like every scene,
R.I.P. by the way, R.I.P.
Right, every scene that he's in, I was laughing. Like he's just that. And I don't know if you two have watched Euphoria. That's like, I think, what he's most known for. But it's almost like the same character. And he's just like talking, mumbling under his breath. That scene where he's in the car with Sammy and he's just like trying to sing while she's trying to hack into the system. I thought that was great. And then when he scares her, when he's just like, oh, sorry, I just, you were giving me eyes. I thought you were trying to like.
He's also, spoiler alert, the first major death we see in the movie. And he plays like an annoying prick so fucking well that I couldn't wait to see him die. And I knew the entire time, I'm like, yep, he'll be the first to die. And he absolutely was. It's a shame that in real life, real life tragedy, like I said, RIP, that, he's no longer with us or anything like that. The movie also celebrated his life by giving him, putting his name on the screen, letting us know that, hey, this is his last thing that he did. But he is absolutely amazing in the movie. And I got to give them fucking props, because you don't see white characters like that in movies anymore, because they were taboo for so long. Y'all know what I'm talking about by saying that too. Like urban white guy,
Malibu's Most Wanted.
Exactly. It's Jamie Kennedy all over again. But I liked him. He was funny. He's like riding around that little fucking bike in the mansion and shit, and just he's wasted hammered. wasted hammered. I mean, I've
Oh,
never
yeah.
believed a drunk performance more than I believed his in that movie. I could feel, I could taste the fucking booze on his breath while watching him.
Yeah, I mean, he
was fantastic.
he stole the show for me. And I going back to it, Melissa Barrera did I think give a much better performance in this film than what I thought she did in the last 2 Scream movies. But I also felt the same way, like she's always getting kind of the rug pulled from under her because she's up against Dan Stevens in this one, and I think he's phenomenal in this. And I think it steals away from her. And I don't know that she can necessarily be called the lead, but she is a lead in this, and he is the main focus at the end, especially that final act. Jumping ahead a little bit, I think it's really unfortunate for her that she keeps being in movies where somebody keeps upstaging her.
Yeah.
I mean,
you want to talk about his performance, man. You want to talk about someone that's a fucking, like, their character is a prick.
Yeah.
Jesus, Dan Stevens.
Oh, the biggest prick.
One of the biggest.
Yeah.
Is one of the biggest assholes. He plays Frank. One of the biggest asshole performances, like, ever, to where you're like, dude, he is a fucking dick. They make you hate that fucking guy.
Mm-hmm.
I also liked him though. I liked him because of how big of a dick he
Yeah.
was. You know what I mean? He's
He was
such a
fucking
fucking
hilarious.
dick. He's such a fucking dick. It's hard to hate him. You know, I will bring this up because this is something that is a commonly a common thing rather in modern horror movies, modern R-rated comedies, whatever. You know, like I feel like I've become numb to the word fuck, and we do say it often on the show, nowhere near as we.
Oh, that's my favorite word.
As often as we used to. I like strategic strikes with the word, especially when it comes to comedy. I don't think personally that it's funny if you say it every other word, but precision strikes, cool. This is another case where it's like the last 2 Scream movies that Radio Silence made, where it is like almost every other word, and you know it's gonna work for some people or it's not. I feel like I've gotten to the point where I'm numb to it, where I'm just like whatever, which is kind of unfortunate because I miss the days when you would get it. You know, you can get it a handful of times in a movie. I don't mind it by any means. I like the word too, Jeremy, but I just feel like, you know, for example, Dan Stevens' character Frank, he says it like every sentence, and I'm like, you know, come on, like give me something more. I'd like a little bit more originality in dialogue. I know what year we live in. I know how people talk, especially young people, and they're going to connect to it, but I'm like, man, it would just be a lot funnier to me if not every character constantly used the word. Just saying.
No, I get it.
But that's what I'm saying. Like at this point, I feel I've become numb to it in the sense where I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. I'm not going to let it ruin the movie for me. It's just a basic observation. But I do feel overall, when you look at the writing, the dialogue, I thought it was pretty witty. I thought there are some moments that don't land in terms of the comedy, but for the most part, Brady, you sat next to me. I was laughing pretty hard at this movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think for a good 75% of the movie, I'd say that the dialogue lands, the jokes are good. Like Radio Silence and their whole company, you know, and the writers, they're no slouches. They know how to make a good movie. They know how to write a good script. I think that my issues with pacing, with writing, really just end up in the final act. So we'll get to that when we do.
I was going to say, because I know that was one of your biggest issues with the movie was pacing. But I will say, after shit hits the fan, hijinks ensue, as I always like to say on the show, it's a roller coaster ride from there on. It doesn't really stop. It doesn't, you know, it just keeps going and gets more and more bloody. And I love the way that Radio Silence knows how to ratchet that up. The first kill, you know, that we get in the movie, even though it's a beheading, you know, Dean's beheaded, and Catherine Newton's character, Sammy, just hears a sound. You know, he makes a pass at her. She's like, that's one of my favorite scenes, though, going back to that, where he just like scares her and she's in the bedroom watching, what is it, Tom and Jerry or some shit. It's
Woodpecker.
Like Woody Woodpecker. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And then she literally is just like, get the fuck out, screaming at his face. Then she hears this sound and she's going to inspect the sound. You know, I felt like it was kind of mild. You know, when her reaction and how she finds out and the actual image of his death, because you don't see it per se. But then after that, it builds continuously and gets more grotesque and more brutal as the movie goes on. I don't know if you guys
I feel
agree with
like
that or not.
I feel like Catherine Newton's Sammy. I feel like her character goes through the worst of all the shit in the entire movie, from like falling in the pool with like the fucking 100 corpses. That's just like, dude, it
Oh,
looks
I love that
disgusting.
scene. Oh, it was so
It
great.
looked so fucking disgusting, and like I just, she's the first one to find old boy with his head decapitated, and like, I just feel like the worst shit happens to her throughout the course of the movie. It's just like bad thing after another bad thing after another gross thing that happens to her, and then spoiler again, full spoiler episode here. Um, she gets bit, and she's like, so on top of like all this gross, awful shit that's happened to her, it's like she's the first one to get turned.
Yeah.
I'm so happy that happens, Jeremy, because I was hoping the entire time, just because I wanted to see what she would do as a
Mhm.
vampire. And dude, she chews scenery so fucking heavy in this movie. She's just having a
Bro.
blast with it.
She is absolutely one of my favorite actresses out there right now. Like, she totally won me over with Lisa Frankenstein, to the point where, like, she was one of the people that I was most excited to see in this movie. And dude, there's a full on like when she turns into a vampire, she's being puppeted by Abigail, and there's a full on like ballerina dance
Oh, with
sequence with
Danzig.
her.
Yep.
And dude, yeah, and it just completely gave me Night of the Demons vibes, which
Oh, definitely.
super, super, super dug that. I mean, she was just fantastic.
You know what I really loved? So I think, going back to your point real quick, Justin. Yeah, I think they did a great job of each time they had an opportunity, the gore just went up a notch. And I loved that part of the writing. I really liked the fucking design of Abigail, especially her teeth. And when Tyler Gillette spoke to Empire, he said, specifically about her teeth. We talked about teeth a lot. And we wanted them to look more primal and animal than usual vampire fangs. So Abigail's are kind of teeth on top of teeth, like a shark's mouth, and those apex predators, when they open their
They
mouth,
definitely
you
remind me a lot
see
of Fright Night teeth for sure.
they're designed to inflict as much damage as possible. And I like that because while I do like the classic, 1930s, the Hammer films, the Christopher Lees, the two fangs, I think that's iconic. I think what makes modern vampire movies terrifying is those jagged teeth. I think hers were especially terrifying. Like you said, like a shark. Abigail's a predator in this movie. And as soon as she turns, it's, all hell breaks loose. And I'm glad that they matched the design of the creature to that.
It's interesting you bring that up. And earlier on in the episode, we did mention Dracula on a fucking boat. Because I remember when we talked about that one, you said I may be incorrect on this, but I think you said you didn't like the teeth in that one. So
I
you
didn't like the design in that one. I didn't like that they were white and looked like the ones from Midnight Mass.
Okay. All right,
Yeah.
that's what it was. I just remember because I'm like, hey, we got Brady on the show. He's going to critique the teeth on the vampire. We got to
I
have that
want to
guy, right?
say, I could be wrong. I mean, whoever's listening could tell me I'm wrong, but I want to say that I said I liked the teeth. I just didn't like the white,
Okay,
translucent-esque
that's what it
vampire
was.
design.
Because I also agree. I'm sure Jeremy would probably agree as well. I liked the teeth in this. I like shark
Hell
mouth
yeah.
way better than just two fangs, especially if you're thinking about it logically. If they're supposed to be like ripping out a fucking throat and have someone like bleeding everywhere, just having like 4 canines, it's not going to rip out that much. But if your whole mouth is filled with them, then definitely, like, you're full on fucking predator, man.
Well, I feel like also, the old vampire movies, from what I've seen at least, didn't really go into a vampire feeding like a predator. It was always sucking blood, right? Or creating a legion or creating wives. And so as we've gotten more modern vampire movies and versions of it, like that's been where it's like, okay, well, like you have to rip open the whole fucking neck to get everything.
Yeah, and in the case of What Makes Me Wet, Down Under is I like to see the throat ripped out, and I just like to see fucking blood spraying all over the place. Like that's what I'm
Yeah.
all about. I love that trend in these movies.
Yeah. Get
So
you
we,
wet down under. Okay.
well,
All right.
you know,
Yeah.
pretty good. It makes me pretty wet out there.
Pretty wet.
We should talk about Abigail herself, though. That performance, Alicia Ware herself, the title character. She was only born in 2009. So, all right, we're known for
Jesus.
not being able to do math. Let's do math on the show and look even dumber.
It's when I started high school.
God damn.
I
was 6 years
2009.
graduated high school,
She's what,
boy.
15? 14,
Okay.
15?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, coul. Awesome. I'm sure our buddy Maurice will be like, no, you're wrong. Use a calculator.
Her autograph is adorable. I moderate a movie poster group, and there's some people that went to the premiere and different events or whatever that the casting crew were at, and it's like she's so young, she literally just prints her name. Like it's just
That's
every
amazing.
letter
I
printed out.
want one of
Yeah.
those. I want one of those.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, they're out there.
Apparently, she's an Irish actress and singer. She began her career in theater, which you can clearly see.
It's wild to say career for someone that was born in 2009.
I know, but hey, she started. I mean, she's jumping right in right now. She was Matilda Wormwood in Matilda the musical. She's done a couple other smaller things here and there, but no, for real. I mean, she's jumping off here big time, and I would have to say, as I already said earlier in the show, that her performance is my favorite in this movie so far. When you have a young performer like that is green, that's so fresh to this kind of thing, and you see them basically salivating, oozing, like her charisma in the movie is top notch. She is chewing scenery as well as she chews fucking throats in this thing. I mean, even her dialogue in the movie, the way that she delivers it is just delicious. She's perfect in this fucking movie. This is a hard role to do. It's obvious she did the majority of her own dancing. The ballerina stuff is very difficult to do. She did the majority of that. There's wire work in the movie that when she does the dancing moves into the kill. Super impressive. And then, of course, we have the scenes where she has to talk. And she does two different characters. She plays a scared little terrified girl, and then she plays this destructive, menacing, terrifying vampire girl.
Monster. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolute monster.
Yeah, I was reading that when she was approaching the character, she actually names the characters two different names. So when she's the quote unquote normal human girl, she's Abby, and when she is the monster, she's Abigail, and that kind of helped her process of differentiating between this performance and this performance. And then I also heard Faye was telling me that she had read that they really had not incorporated much of the ballet into the original script and into the movie, but then she was able to do the dance moves, whether she was trained ballet beforehand or she was just able to pick it up. So then they heightened it because she was able to do it and catch on. So I mean, I have no doubt she's gonna go far, whether it's in movies in general or this genre. Like anybody who's that young and has that kind of knack for it, whether it's a physical performance or that emotional performance that she gives, she's gonna be great.
Yeah, I agree. I can't wait to see what she does next. I hope that she keeps that horror pedigree and sticks with the genre, and we get to see more of her. We'll get to the ending here really, really quickly, but let's just say the way the movie ends, it's entirely possible we could see her again. So
not if people don't start going to the fucking theater, considering how much money it made.
Well,
in a
so
week.
far, so good.
Well, I wanted to ask you guys real quick before we move along. And so, last year and maybe even the year before, we talked a lot about horror at the box office, right? Like we had some barn burners at the box office. This year, I would say we have had not as many, or it has not quite been successful at the box office. Do you think it's one, the type of movies that are coming out, think like Founders Day, Night Swim, or do you think that maybe we're getting into oversaturated territory where people like aren't as excited anymore? What do you think?
I think it's the content that's being put out. I think Maxine is gonna kill at the box office.
Well,
I think it's
that's
gonna
the
be
other thing.
I mean, even so, just as an example, not to cut you guys off, since the last time we recorded, which was our review of The First Omen, the movie hadn't made back its budget yet, and now it has. It's made 45 million on a 30 million budget. So I think with horror, especially, and what we've seen, with Immaculate and other movies this year, horror is actually crushing it. Sometimes with the genre, it just continues to go slowly within a couple of weeks. Obviously we have the bigger movies. I mean, Godzilla X Kong, I mentioned earlier on, which Dan Stevens is also in, that has consistently stayed in the top 5 since it came out. I mean, people are always going to go and see those bigger movies. You know, Jesus Christ, last night I went and saw Spider-Man 2 on the big screen for a re-release. That was number 2 at the box office last night. I mean, people are going to see movies, so it's happening. I think it's just a matter of sometimes horror, it takes a little bit longer. For some reason, guys, we see those Blumhouse movies, whatever, and they do huge numbers. They do huge numbers first weekend, and usually they kind of trail off. But it seems like the trend this year so far, Late Night with the Devil, Immaculate, The First Omen, among others, they're slowly creeping through, and they're going to continue to make their money. So I'd be interested to see. But I think as a whole, if you look at the genre, it's actually crushing it right now. It's just consistently beating up the box office because it proves that people are still coming out consistently to see the movies.
Yeah.
You mentioned fucking Blumhouse, man, and I gotta say something off topic really fucking quick. I'm gonna get in, I'm gonna get out. Dude, did you guys see the trailer for fucking Speak No Evil, their remake for the movie that came out like a fucking year ago? That the only reason they reshot it was because they were like, well, we'll just put American actors in it and release it, out to American people rather than just acquiring the rights to the actual foreign film and then re-releasing it theatrically nationwide for a film that's fucking good and effective. They're like, no, we're gonna fucking do the let the right one in, let me in bullshit, where we literally take a movie that's fucking loved and we're gonna do a shot for shot remake, but with American actors. That shit makes me so mad. I saw the trailer right before Abigail and I was like, dude, fucking Blumhouse, man. And they showed, in typical Blumhouse fashion, they showed the entire fucking movie in a 2-minute long trailer. The only thing they didn't show you was the fucking ending. Fuck you, Blumhouse. That's my stand now.
Jeremy's rants
God
happening here on
damn,
Epic
dude.
Film, guys. And
Yeah.
honestly, I feel bad about this because I love James McAvoy. I love him so much, and I'm like, how the hell did you get involved in this, dude? Seriously,
They dumped money on him, and he was like, okay.
It's such a shame.
God
I agree with you,
damn,
man.
dude.
I agree with you. Bad move.
All right,
It looks bad. Everyone's shitting on it too. So
back to Abigail, but I just had to fucking say that. I was like, man, I'm so fucking sick of these motherfuckers, man.
yeah, I don't disagree with you, man. We'll see if they release anything in the next year or so that we actually do like. Hey, never say never. But moving on here, Brady, let's get on to that third act because I know that was a point of contention for you that you really wanted to bring up and dissect a little bit. What was it about that third act for you that didn't necessarily bring it home the way that you hoped it would?
Yeah, I mean, so if you go back to the overall movie, the pacing is a little bit clunky. I think it takes way too long in the first act. The second act is way too rushed, and then third act is also a little too sweet and neat. So
sweet and neat.
Maybe it's because I'm also going into it expecting, gruesome, unhappy endings. Or I don't know about you guys, but I kind of navigate to movies where there aren't happy endings, right? I don't like this whole tie it up with the bow kind of thing. That's not what you get, but that's what I like. That being said, I would have been fine with this movie had the ending still not seeing Joey die. I didn't need her to die. But what I don't like is how they got there, and it's so again, spoilers. Frank gets turned into a vampire, and so he's this brute vampire who is battling.
the movie gods for that.
Yes,
Thank
finally got
you.
Dan Stevens as a fucking vampire. But he and Abigail are battling. Abigail's weak. He's obviously strong, but it's his raw power. So then Joey and Abigail have to team up to defeat Frank so that Abigail does not get killed. And then because of that, Abigail says, you can go. But then Dracula shows up at the end, which one problem is who they picked for Dracula. What is it? Matt Good? Is that who it was?
Matthew Good, yeah.
I liked him in Downton Abbey, where he actually knew Dan Stevens from. But I feel like he was just not the person for this. And you and I talked about it, Justin.
Yeah, we might as well bring this up right now. So yes, anyone that pays attention to the dialogue in this movie, the music, the build up, you pretty much can connect the dots that they're mentioning this gangster name constantly throughout the movie, like that this guy's that he's gonna come and get them. He's this guy that if you fuck with him, really bad things are gonna happen to you. And then of course you kind of in the back of your head are like, oh, she's Dracula's kid. That's what this is. I had already heard prior to seeing this that it was loosely based on Dracula's daughter. So as soon as we heard that music in the opening, Brady, and you and I turned to each other, I was like, okay, I expect to have, if not a nod, we'll see Dracula's fucking hands or something, or they'll get a stand-in or something. But no, we actually see Dracula played by Matthew Good in the movie. And I'm 50-50 on this moment because there's such a good build-up to it. I think that while Matthew Good's a solid actor, you should have either not seen his face, or I was telling you guys the other day that they should have done, like, even if it didn't make sense, right? Get a cameo. It's fucking 5 minutes worth of time that he has to spend. Get Gary Oldman in there or something. Throw some fucking white makeup on him. You know what I mean? Even because, again, like, this is probably like a one-off. I could see that it's potentially going to be sequel bait. Or a franchise, if you will. But dude, amazing. Imagine building up to that and then like that's who you see as the dad. The crowd would have erupted. But for the most part, I heard people like, who's that? Like Danielle turned to me and she's like, I don't know who that is. And I go, it's an actor. He's done a lot of stuff. He's received an Emmy nomination, all kinds of stuff, but he's not Dracula material in my eyes. That's just my opinion. I would have loved to have either.
Dude, it's so funny that you mentioned Gary Oldman because I'm like, when they were like highlighting that Dracula was about to show up, and then they showed like a lower body shot of him before they showed the face. I legit was like, dude, it's gonna be they cast somebody insane to play Dracula. And then when they finally showed his face, I was like, I don't know who the fuck that is. And
dude, you're the audience. You're 95% of the audience right there because most people aren't going to know. So that's why I think it was a miss by Radio Silence because they built it up to be such a big, awesome reveal. Then when you get to it, you're like, I don't know who that is. Is that supposed to be? Oh, that's Dracula. You know what I mean? Like,
but it's funny that you mentioned Gary Oldman because I was like, dude. I was like, who could they have cast that would have evoked the reaction? Yeah.
Well, no, honestly, no, for real, that is a great question. I'd love to hear you guys mention that. I just bring up Gary Oldman because
that's who I thought of.
Arguably the most iconic Dracula, especially for our age. Francis Ford Coppola's version. He's one of my favorite versions. Like, but who else now would you? You can't get Nick Cage. He just did Renfield. That wouldn't make any sense. Even though it's the same studio, like what would you do? Who would you put?
That would have been nuts if they would have cast him too. But yeah, my first thought, I was like, who could they have cast that the audience would have fucking gone nuts? And I was like, dude, Gary Oldman. But outside of Gary Oldman and Nicolas Cage would have been a good one too. Who's a fucking? I mean, dude, even a fucking like a Patrick Wilson, like someone on that level that it's like, okay. Way more like recognizable in the horror genre and mainstream movie-going
who I'm gonna pick.
Audience.
Christopher Sarandon.
Oh my god,
dude.
That would have blown minds. That would have blown minds. I mean,
in that robe, in the red robe. Come on.
I mean, he's not Dracula and Fright Night, but still, people wouldn't even care. They'd just fucking freak out. And like I was saying, going back to it just real briefly here, it's not like it would have cost them a lot to get Oldman for one day, because let's be clear here. The amount of screen time that we see Dracula, that's how long it would have taken. It looked like he shot for all of fucking a few hours, maybe. One day.
Yeah.
He's in one fucking scene.
One day for sure.
Couple shots.
One day for sure.
So again, that does not bring down my entire score on the movie or anything. I just felt like, if you're gonna go ahead, Brady.
I was gonna say that isn't my main thing. I was just tying him into it. My main issue was that Dracula shows up and he's going to feast on Joey because he's like, well, we're fucking vampires, is what we do, and I'm Lazar also, this crime lord. And Abigail has this running theme throughout the movie where she's like, my dad doesn't care about me and my dad doesn't love me. And come on, I have the same story. But then he shows up and he's going to kill Joey. And she's like, no, you can't kill Joey because she saved me and I'm your daughter. And but she was there for me when you weren't. And he's like, well, I'm here now. And then they let her go. I was like, that is the dumbest bullshit in a vampire movie I've ever seen. And that made me mad. And so, like, while it doesn't ruin the entire movie, I was like, what are you doing? Like, why can't you could have done any other thing to let her go. She could have escaped. You could have set up a second movie. You could have just been like, I'll let you go for now.
You could have killed her too.
You could have killed her. You didn't need for this whole banter of the.
Well, you know why they didn't kill her, though. You know why they didn't kill her. Because Radio Silence, they've already positioned Melissa to be the franchise hero in this movie. She was in their last one. What happened with that, we already talked about in an episode. I'm sure we're going to talk about it again. Now bringing Scream stuff into this, but she's being set up to be, hey, if there's more of these, this could continue on. And I could see her in another one of these too. So I get why they didn't kill her. I do agree with you. There could have been, it was extremely safe. It was just like he showed up and then the tension ended immediately. And then it was like, okay, here you go out the door, where everyone else just fucking died. We knew everyone else was going to die. I knew everyone else was going to die. I will get to your point though a little bit. The ending battle between, Frank and Abigail, I loved all that shit. It was done amazingly.
Yeah,
the action was so fucking good in this movie. And Dan Stevens, you mentioned it yourself, Brady, as we left the theater. Him with those glasses and him covered in blood, and his presentation of the character, just ooze and blood all over the place, definitely harkened back. It was definitely an homage to Bill Paxton in Near Dark. I definitely felt that. He just had it. It was there. Loved what he did. He just salivated, oozed charisma as well. Chewed up scenery. Had such a large amount of fun at the end there. It does get packed up all nice and neat, but at the same time, I didn't mind that as much. I actually like the ending a lot, where Melissa a lot where Joey goes out, she gets in the van, she pulls out, we've been told throughout the movie her backstory, she's an ex-junkie, and she pulls out the lollipop she's been trying to find the whole movie to suck on again. She starts sucking on it and fucking leaves and the movie ends. I thought that part was satisfying because unlike you guys, I've actually loved her a lot in the last two movies I've seen her in. So I do agree on Scream 5, but I think she really shined in this movie, and I was like, I felt for her, and I was like, yes, like I wanted to cheer her on as the hero at the end of the movie. But yeah, I mean, the Dracula thing, the way it wrapped it all up too nicely in a movie that's so bloody, so violent, and over the top at times, felt tacked on. But overall, just didn't bother me because I had so much fucking fun with this movie. So boys, I think it's that time for final thoughts and trash it or treasure it. So I'm going to throw it to you first, Jeremy. Final thoughts, and are you going to trash Abigail or treasure it?
Final thoughts for me is that I was thoroughly entertained by this movie. I had a really good time with it. I didn't walk out of this movie going, fuck, I goddamn loved this movie. But I did walk out going, man, that was super fun, super entertaining. If we were doing a rating scale, which obviously we don't, then I don't know where this would sit for me. But the fact that we do a trash it or treasure it. And it did its job, man. We go to the movies, you know, as Nicole Kidman says. No,
I was like, is he gonna do the whole thing?
movies feel special in a place like this. Or heartbreak. I don't know. I got nothing. Fucking no, but like we go to the movies to be entertained, and as a form of escapism. And dude, it did its job, man. I was thoroughly entertained. I really enjoyed the characters. I enjoyed all of the practical effects that we did get. Kevin Durant is the shit. Catherine Newton, god damn, I love you. Melissa Barrera was fantastic. Um, Man, I'm gonna treasure it. Um, had some other small pieces of this not worked for me, it probably would have gone the other way. But the fact that my gripes are minute, really, in comparison, I just didn't love it, but I really, really enjoyed it. So I'm gonna treasure it.
Awesome.
Nice.
And be ready.
Yeah, I always go back and forth with how I trash or treasure, because a big component for me is, would I recommend somebody to watch this? Would I go rewatch it a second time? And so sometimes with that it gets harder. But then again, we have movies where maybe they're so heavy you can't rewatch it anytime soon, or whatever the case. Anyways, when I walked into the theater, I was pretty sure that I was going to trash this movie. Because I was like, well, I don't know that I would recommend this to anybody, and I don't know that I would want to go watch it again. But after sitting on it, and talking to a couple people, I think it's kind of like what Justin said. It's a popcorn flick, and that's all it needs to be here to be enjoyable. So for me, I think this is Radio Silence's sweet spot. And like I said on Twitter, it's a punchy script. It's got a superb cast, and it's got blood, guts, a little bit of Danzig on top, which never is a bad thing. And aside from my pacing issues and that ending that I can't get behind, it was a blast, and it was a bloody blast. And so for me, I would say that I'll treasure it, because I do think it's an enjoyable vampire movie. And when we have things like The Last Voyage of the Demeter coming out, you got to enjoy it when you can.
Very well said, my friends. And you already at this point, guys, know where I'm going to go with this. I'm going to treasure it as well. I had a lot of fun with it. I think, popcorn horror is something that we need, especially when it's well done. As comedy horror, it's rare that we get these movies anymore. And I laughed in this movie. There were some decent moments of suspense. I mean, I don't find the movie was scary in any way, but I think they built up some suspense and some good scenes, and there's some great gore, and I loved the performances, loved the ensemble cast. And I'll say this much, because I have shit on this poor man too much in the last two Scream movies, but Brian Tyler's music here, his score, I liked it a lot more than I like his music for the Scream movies. I miss Marco Beltrami there, but I love what he did here, and I thought he did a fantastic job. And music in horror movies means a lot to me. It's very important. I think he did a really good job. But Radio Silence, I'll always be on your side so far. For me, at least, 4 movies in, and you haven't disappointed me yet. So I'll always be there on opening night. Treasure it for me, ladies and gentlemen. That is it for our Epic Film Guys Fresh Fright review of Abigail, out in theaters right now. If you haven't seen the movie and you listen to this, thanks for listening. Go see the fucking movie, support it, enjoy it, or let us know why you didn't. But if you did watch the movie and you listened, thanks again. Love having everyone tell us their opinions on social media. So if you find this post, when you see the episode get posted, let us know what you thought of the movie. Thank you, new listeners. Thank you, old listeners. Thanks for the support constantly. We're nearing our 10th anniversary of Epic Film Guys. As of this recording, dropping this episode, it'll be less than a week until the official 10-year anniversary, and we're hoping still to do some really cool special stuff. So stay tuned for that. But as you know, we're on social media everywhere at Epic Film Guys: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Wherever you look, we're on every single podcatcher. Just thanks again. We love you. Thanks again for supporting the show and listening. As always, I am Justin.
I'm Jeremy.
I'm BluBrry.
And as always, we'd like to ask you to keep it creepy.